There are some relationships in life that are supposed to be sacred, unbreakable. The kind of bonds that are forged not by choice, but by blood and shared history, and the understanding that no matter what happens, you will always have each other. The relationship between sisters is supposed to be one of those bonds. But what happens when that bond becomes twisted? When jealousy and resentment seep into the cracks of a relationship that was supposed to be safe? When the person who should be celebrating your happiness becomes the one trying to destroy it? This is the story of a woman named Catherine, and it's about her sister, Lorraine, and it's about a wedding that should have been the happiest day of Catherine's life, but instead became a battlefield. Now, I'm telling you this story not to make you angry, though I suspect you will be angry by the end of it. And I'm not telling it to judge either of these women, though judgment will probably feel inevitable. I'm telling you this story because it reveals something deeply uncomfortable about family dynamics, about the ways we enable bad behavior because we're afraid of conflict, about the ways women in particular are taught to be accommodating and gracious even when someone is actively trying to hurt them. And I'm telling you this story because sometimes the most important thing you can do is say, "No, enough. I will not let you take this from me, so sit with me." Let me tell you about Catherine and Lorraine and the day everything finally broke open. Catherine was 32 years old when she got engaged. She was the oldest of 6 children in a large Italian Catholic family, the kind of family where everyone has an opinion about everything and Sunday dinners are mandatory and love is expressed through food and loud arguments and an understanding that no matter what, family comes first. Catherine had always been the responsible one, the oldest daughter, the one who took care of everyone else, who smoothed over conflicts, who made sure her younger siblings felt seen and supported. Her fiancé, Daniel, was 36. They'd known each other for years, friends first, then something more. He was a physical therapist working on his doctorate. She had her own career. They were building something together, something real and stable and good. When Daniel proposed in April, Catherine was overjoyed. They decided on a November wedding, the Saturday after Thanksgiving in Chicago, where they both lived. It was the only time that worked for everyone in Catherine's sprawling family, most of whom lived out of state. Planning a wedding with 6 siblings is complicated. 3 of them had children. Schedules were difficult to coordinate, but Catherine was determined to make it work because family mattered to her. She wanted everyone there. Her sister Lorraine, 30 years old, single mother to a 4-year-old daughter named Emma, lived in Florida, and Lorraine was the holdout on whether the date would work. Now, I want you to understand something about Catherine and Lorraine's relationship. They were close in age, only 2 years apart, and they were the only 2 girls in the family. For most of their childhood, they'd been best friends. They'd shared a room, shared secrets, shared dreams about what their lives would be like when they grew up. But somewhere along the way, something had shifted. Lorraine had gotten married young, 19 years old, to her high school sweetheart. Catherine had been in the wedding, one of 7 bridesmaids. It had been a beautiful wedding, paid for mostly by the groom's parents. Catherine remembered her mother scraping together money to buy Lorraine's dress, and Lorraine crying with gratitude when she found out. But the marriage didn't last. After 18 months, Lorraine and her husband divorced, and 3 years after that, they had a daughter together in what Lorraine described as an attempt to reconcile. It didn't work. By the time Catherine got engaged, Lorraine had been a single mother for several years, and while Catherine loved her niece Emma dearly, she'd noticed something troubling. Lorraine had become bitter, resentful, quick to take offense, and slow to forgive. Still, Catherine wanted her sister in the wedding. If Lorraine could make it, Catherine wanted her to be a bridesmaid. They were sisters. That's what you did. So Catherine waited for Lorraine to confirm the date, and when she finally did, Catherine asked her to be part of the bridal party. That was the first mistake. Almost immediately after agreeing to be a bridesmaid, Lorraine began trying to take over Catherine's wedding. Catherine would send her ideas for the wedding. She wanted a classy color scheme of gold and wine, with sunflowers and roses as the flowers. Simple, elegant, romantic. Lorraine's response: "You're copying me. I had sunflowers at my wedding 11 years ago." Catherine was stunned. She didn't even remember what flowers Lorraine had used at her wedding over a decade ago. And even if she had remembered, since when did someone own a type of flower? But Lorraine wouldn't let it go. Every idea Catherine shared, Lorraine had criticism for. Every decision Catherine made, Lorraine had a better suggestion. Catherine's maid of honor was her best friend, Haley. Haley had dark blue highlights in her naturally black hair. You could barely see them unless you were in direct sunlight. She also had a few tattoos on her arms and a larger one on her back. Lorraine made comments about Haley's appearance. She asked Catherine if Haley would dye her hair a natural color for the wedding. She worried aloud about the tattoos showing in the wedding photos. Now, here's what makes this particularly absurd. Lorraine herself had a large tattoo across her chest, down her breastbone. A tattoo that would be visible in any dress with a normal neckline. Catherine ignored the comments. She loved Haley. Haley had been her best friend since high school. Haley's hair and tattoos were part of who she was, and Catherine wouldn't dream of asking her to change herself for a wedding. But Lorraine kept pushing. In July, Catherine went dress shopping with her mother, Haley, and her future mother-in-law. Lorraine joined via FaceTime from Florida. Catherine's mother and mother-in-law wanted to get matching dresses in a color of Catherine's choosing. Haley was also trying on bridesmaid dresses. Catherine knew what she wanted for her bridesmaids, a dress with lace long sleeves, a higher neckline, and an open back. Something elegant and timeless. When Haley tried on a dress in this style, you could see some of her arm tattoos through the lace. They were delicate, barely visible, beautiful even. Lorraine lost it. She started yelling through the phone about how unprofessional it looked, how the tattoos would ruin the photos, how Catherine was being inconsiderate by choosing a dress that would show Haley's tattoos while conveniently covering Lorraine's chest tattoo. Catherine's mother reminded Lorraine that it was Catherine's wedding, not hers, and that her comments were unnecessary. But Lorraine wasn't done. When Catherine asked Haley if she'd prefer the dress in burgundy or hunter green, both beautiful, rich colors, Lorraine threw a fit. She hated both colors. She said she would never wear this horrid dress again. Catherine tried on several wedding dresses that day. For each one, Lorraine had something negative to say. The neckline was wrong, the fit was unflattering, the style was dated. After a few dresses, Catherine was near tears. She felt defeated. She felt like nothing she chose would be good enough. Finally, her mother hung up with Lorraine. And with Lorraine off the phone, Catherine was able to relax and enjoy the rest of the appointment. She found a dress she loved. The mothers found their dresses, the bridesmaids found theirs, but Lorraine continued to complain. She told their mother that she hated the bridesmaid dress, that Catherine had only chosen it to make Lorraine drop out of the wedding. She dragged her feet for over 2 months before finally ordering the dress in mid-September, barely 2 months before the November wedding. And by then, Catherine had already paid for all the dresses, the shoes, and arranged to pay for hair and makeup the day of the wedding. Lorraine had to pay for nothing, and still, she complained. She sent Catherine constant messages with suggestions for things to add to the wedding, even though Catherine had already booked everything and put down deposits. "This would be better," Lorraine would say. "You should do it this way." Catherine learned to ignore her. She was trying to enjoy the excitement of planning her wedding, but Lorraine was making it exhausting. And then everything changed. In October, about 2.5 weeks before the wedding, Haley was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. Catherine's world stopped when she heard the news. Haley, her best friend, her maid of honor, the person who had been by her side through everything, was facing a life-threatening illness. Haley started chemotherapy immediately. The treatments were brutal. She was exhausted, nauseous, weak, and she was about to lose her hair. One evening, Haley called Catherine. Through tears, she told Catherine that she didn't want to go through the process of watching her hair fall out in clumps. She wanted to shave her head, and she wanted Catherine to be the one to do it. But then Haley said something that broke Catherine's heart. She asked if Catherine wanted her to do it before or after the wedding. Haley explained that she would make sure she had a silk wrap for her head that matched her dress if they did it before the wedding. She just wanted to be there. She didn't want to ruin Catherine's special day. Catherine started crying. She told Haley that she didn't care how she looked. She just wanted her best friend beside her. That was all that mattered. Haley broke down. She admitted that she'd been planning to drop out of the wedding entirely because she was afraid she would ruin Catherine's photos, ruin the day, make everything about her illness instead of about Catherine's happiness. Catherine told her that the day wouldn't be perfect without her there. That if Haley needed to be in a wheelchair, if she needed a stool to sit on, if she needed the makeup artist to come to her at the church instead of doing it with everyone else, whatever Haley needed, Catherine would make it happen. Daniel, Catherine's fiancé, was so moved by Haley's situation that he and his best man made plans to shave their heads too, as a show of solidarity. They wouldn't tell Haley, they'd let it be a surprise on the wedding day. Haley mentioned that she was grateful the bridesmaid dress had a higher neckline, because it would cover the port in her chest where the chemotherapy was administered. She said it made her feel beautiful because it covered the proof of her illness, the IV marks, the bruising, all of it. For Catherine, hearing this made her feel even more certain that she'd chosen the right dress. It was perfect for Haley. It made her feel beautiful during a time when she felt anything but. But Lorraine lost it. When she found out about Haley's diagnosis, Lorraine called Catherine and told her that Haley should step down from the wedding, that Haley was trying to steal Catherine's day and make everything about her illness, that if Haley was bald, it would ruin the wedding photos. Catherine couldn't believe what she was hearing. Haley had cancer. She was going through chemotherapy. She was fighting for her life. And Lorraine was worried about photos? Lorraine also complained that because Haley would be in treatment, they wouldn't be able to have a true bachelorette party because Haley couldn't drink. Catherine and Daniel hadn't even been planning on having bachelor or bachelorette parties. They were homebodies. They were hosting Thanksgiving at their new house 2 days before the wedding. The idea of a big party wasn't something they'd ever wanted, but that didn't matter to Lorraine. What mattered to her was that Haley's illness was inconveniencing her vision of what the wedding should be. Daniel told Catherine that Lorraine needed to be removed from the wedding. He talked to Catherine's parents about it. Her father agreed. Her mother left the decision up to Catherine. Catherine didn't want to kick Lorraine out. She was afraid of what Lorraine would do, how she would make Thanksgiving miserable, how she would ruin the wedding by showing up and causing a scene. But more than that, Catherine was thinking about her niece, Emma. Emma was supposed to be the flower girl, and if Catherine uninvited Lorraine, Emma might not be able to come to the wedding either. Catherine's parents were in a difficult position. They loved both their daughters, but they also understood that Lorraine's behavior was unacceptable. They told Catherine that whatever she decided, they would support her. Catherine felt trapped. She felt like she was choosing between keeping the peace and standing up for herself and Haley. But Daniel's brother, who was one of the groomsmen, told Catherine something that made her decision easier. He said he was fine with stepping down from the wedding if Catherine chose to uninvite Lorraine so that the numbers stayed even. Catherine felt like she had everyone's support, everyone except Lorraine. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Lorraine's behavior escalated from difficult to destructive. Catherine had put passwords on all her vendor accounts, the florist, the caterer, the dress shop, the venue. She'd done this out of an abundance of caution, afraid that someone might try to interfere with her plans. At the time, she thought she was being paranoid. She wasn't paranoid enough. The weekend before the wedding, Catherine started getting phone calls from her vendors. First, it was the bridal shop. Someone had called, pretending to be Catherine, and tried to cancel the entire dress order. Not just the wedding dress, but all the bridesmaid dresses too. The shop owner was experienced enough to smell something wrong. She opened Catherine's account, saw that there was a password requirement, and knew immediately that the caller wasn't Catherine. So she played along. "Okay," she said to the caller, "I'll cancel the order. You should see a receipt for the cancellation in your email in a moment, along with information about the refund." The impersonator panicked. "Wait, actually, I need to change the email address." The shop owner told her she couldn't change the email address, but she could forward the receipt to a different address if needed. The caller hung up. The shop owner immediately called Catherine to warn her. She recommended that Catherine notify all her other vendors, because if someone was trying to sabotage the bridal shop order, they were probably trying to sabotage other things too. Catherine sent out a mass email to all her vendors, letting them know that someone was attempting to cancel reservations, but that the wedding was still on. Then she got another call. This time, it was the catering company. Someone had left a voicemail trying to cancel the food order. The caterer ignored it because Catherine had a meeting already scheduled with them and the hotel event coordinator to finalize numbers. The person trying to cancel didn't have the correct information, they didn't have the password, they didn't have the contract details. And because the catering was part of a larger contract with the hotel, any cancellation would have to go through the event coordinator directly. Catherine's hands were shaking as she hung up the phone. Someone was actively trying to destroy her wedding, and she had a pretty good idea who it was, but it got worse. Catherine's brother, the one whose wife had just given birth to their third son, called her. He said his wife, Mary, had mentioned that Lorraine had called them, accusing them of stealing her baby name. Except they hadn't stolen anything. Mary and her husband had named their son after both of their fathers. Mary's father had early-onset dementia, and the baby shared a birthday with him. It was a meaningful, deliberate choice that had nothing to do with Lorraine. But Lorraine couldn't stand the idea that she wasn't the center of attention. Even her brother's newborn baby was somehow an offense against her. Catherine also got a call from Lorraine's ex-husband. He wanted to know if Catherine was actually getting married because Lorraine had a history of making up fake family events to keep Emma away from him during his custody time. Catherine assured him that yes, the wedding was real. She apologized for not staying in touch with him over the years. After the divorce, things had been awkward, and Catherine had let the friendship fade. They ended up talking for almost 3 hours, catching up on each other's lives. By the end of the conversation, Catherine realized something. She missed him. He'd been a good friend once, and he was a good father to Emma, and that's when an idea formed. Catherine and Daniel decided to move in the shadows. They made a plan that would ensure Emma could still be in the wedding, even if Lorraine wasn't. A plan that would protect Catherine's special day while still giving Lorraine a chance to behave. Lorraine was flying into Chicago the Saturday before the wedding. She would be staying with Catherine's parents. Emma was supposed to be the flower girl. But Catherine hadn't formally uninvited Lorraine yet. She wanted to see how Lorraine behaved once she arrived. She wanted to give her sister one last chance. Lorraine's behavior leading up to the wedding would determine whether she'd be allowed to attend. Catherine's family was on board. Her brothers were ready to act if needed. Daniel and his groomsmen were prepared to step in. Even Catherine's parents, who usually avoided conflict, were ready to support whatever decision Catherine made. On the Wednesday before the wedding, 3 days before Thanksgiving, Catherine was at her parents' house helping her mother prepare food. Lorraine was there with Emma. Lorraine hadn't tried on her bridesmaid dress yet, and she complained about it loudly. Catherine's mother assured her they'd take care of it Friday before the rehearsal. Right now, they were focused on preparing for the holiday. Then Lorraine decided to ask about money. She wanted to know how much the wedding had cost, how much the new house had cost, how Catherine and Daniel were affording everything, the reception, the honeymoon, all of it. Catherine's mother told her it was rude to ask. But Lorraine turned on their mother, accusing her of being unfair because they'd been raised being told their parents wouldn't help with college or weddings. But clearly Catherine was getting help. Their mother reminded Lorraine that she and their father had paid for Lorraine's wedding dress, which cost $2,500, and had also written her a check for $1,000 for her wedding. Lorraine's ex-husband's parents had paid for the rest. Lorraine demanded to know how much their parents had given Catherine. The answer was nothing. Catherine and Daniel had paid for everything themselves. Catherine's mother worked in real estate and had helped them find their house, but it was an off-market sale, so she hadn't even received a commission. Then Lorraine asked where Catherine and Daniel were going on their honeymoon. Catherine explained that they'd decided to skip the honeymoon and put that money into the house instead. Lorraine scoffed. "Oh, right, don't need a honeymoon when you're already pregnant." Catherine stared at her sister. The comment was cruel and pointed, implying that Catherine was either pregnant or overweight. Either way, it was meant to hurt. Catherine decided she'd had enough. She asked her father to drive her home. She couldn't be around Lorraine anymore without breaking. In the car, Catherine started crying. She told her father she couldn't take Lorraine's abuse anymore, and she was terrified of being labeled a bridezilla if she said anything. Her father told her something important. He said that Catherine could be as much of a bridezilla as she wanted, and no one would label her as such, because she'd been nothing but considerate to everyone else throughout the entire wedding planning process. He told her he would have her back, and if their mother got upset, he'd smooth things over. When they got to Catherine's house, her father had one more surprise for her. He told her he didn't think Lorraine was actually pregnant. He thought Lorraine had announced a pregnancy to try to steal attention away from Catherine and the wedding, and he promised her that wouldn't happen. On Thanksgiving Day, Lorraine and Emma arrived at Catherine's house with their parents. When they walked in, Emma was wearing a shirt that said, "I'm a big sister." Everyone was shocked. Lorraine announced that she was 7 weeks pregnant. She even had an ultrasound photo from earlier that week. Catherine's mother told Lorraine not to mention it to the rest of the family yet, since it was so early in the pregnancy. She gently reminded Lorraine of the miscarriage she'd had years ago, trying to suggest that it might be wise to wait before making a big announcement. Lorraine exploded. She accused their mother of bringing up old wounds, of trying to ruin her happiness, of being unsupportive. Catherine and Daniel exchanged a look because they had plans. Petty, beautiful plans, and Lorraine's pregnancy announcement actually worked perfectly into them. A few minutes later, Emma squealed with excitement and ran across the room. "Daddy!" she screamed. Lorraine froze. Her ex-husband walked around the corner, followed by his wife. His very pregnant wife. She was 20 weeks along and showing. Catherine smiled sweetly at Lorraine. "I invited them to Thanksgiving and the wedding," she explained. "That way Emma doesn't have to miss being our flower girl, even though it's technically her dad's custody time. Thank you so much for giving me his number so I could coordinate with him." Lorraine had given her ex-husband Catherine's number to confirm that the wedding was real, proof for the court that she had a legitimate reason to take Emma out of state during his custody time. She hadn't realized she was giving Catherine a direct line to him. Catherine's mother asked if she'd known about the ex-husband being invited. Catherine's father spoke up before she could answer. "It's her house," he said calmly. "She can invite whoever she wants." Lorraine was furious. She sat through Thanksgiving dinner stiffly, barely speaking, while everyone else caught up with her ex-husband and his wife. She left early, claiming she wasn't feeling well. More importantly, she had to hand Emma over to her ex-husband per the court-ordered custody arrangement, which meant Lorraine wouldn't have Emma with her at the wedding or reception. She couldn't use her daughter as a bargaining chip anymore. The next day was the spa day. Massages, facials, manicures, pedicures. Catherine had intentionally scheduled activities that a pregnant woman couldn't participate in. The sauna, the steam room, the hot tub, all off limits. When Catherine uninvited Lorraine from the spa day, citing pregnancy restrictions, Lorraine didn't argue. She knew she'd been outmaneuvered. That evening, Catherine's mother told her that Lorraine had gone out with friends the night before, after being dropped off at their parents' house. Their mother was exhausted by Lorraine's childish behavior. After the spa, Catherine went to her parents' house to pick up Lorraine before the rehearsal and rehearsal dinner. It was time to tell Lorraine she was no longer in the wedding. Lorraine ambushed them at the front door, demanding to try on her bridesmaid dress, claiming she couldn't find it. Catherine's mother told her the dresses weren't at their house. "Well, they aren't at my house either," Lorraine snapped. "So where are they?" Catherine realized with horror that Lorraine had been in her house without permission, going through her things, looking for the dresses. "You're not welcome in my wedding anymore," Catherine said quietly. "So it doesn't matter where the dresses are." Lorraine got in Catherine's face. She started yelling. She said she felt purposely excluded from everything. She blamed it on her pregnancy, accused Catherine of being jealous. Then she said the thing that would end their relationship forever. "You're selfish," Lorraine screamed. "You designed this wedding to get back at me. You never got to marry Duke, and you can't stand that I got to have a wedding first." Duke had been Catherine's fiancé when she was in her early 20s. He'd been killed by a drunk driver while in a coma before they could get married. It had been the worst period of Catherine's life, and Lorraine had just weaponized that grief. But she wasn't done. "You ruined my first marriage with your grief over his death," Lorraine continued. "And now Daniel is only marrying you out of pity because you make good money and you're a toxic." She didn't get to finish the sentence. Catherine slapped her. The crack of Catherine's hand against Lorraine's face echoed through the house. Lorraine stumbled backward, shocked, and then Catherine started screaming. She told Lorraine that a heartless little sister wasn't going to ruin the best day of her life. She asked Lorraine if the pregnancy was even real, or if it was just another way to steal attention. She berated Lorraine for everything: the cruel comments about Haley, the sabotage attempts, the self-centered behavior, all of it. And then she told Lorraine that she was no longer her sister, that Catherine would maintain a relationship with Emma through her ex-husband, but Lorraine could rot in hell. Then Catherine walked out. The wedding day arrived. Hair and makeup started at 4 a.m. for a 9:30 ceremony. It was going to be a long day. Cocktail hour at noon, dinner at 2, and then an Italian wedding reception that would last well into the night. Haley stood beside Catherine as her maid of honor. She hadn't shaved her head yet. She was wearing her hair in a beautiful loose braid. The chemotherapy hadn't taken her hair yet, though it would soon. But on this day, she looked radiant. When the ceremony began and Catherine walked down the aisle, Daniel cried. He stood at the altar watching the love of his life walk toward him, and he wept with joy. Haley stood strong beside Catherine throughout the ceremony, When Catherine's veil needed adjusting, when her dress train needed fixing, Haley had the other bridesmaids handle it. She was determined to make it through the day, and she did. After the ceremony, they took family photos. Emma, the flower girl, was excited to get to the hotel pool, so they made sure to take all the photos with her first so she could leave with her father and enjoy the rest of her day. The rest of the bridal party went ahead to the cocktail hour while Catherine and Daniel stayed back for their private photos together. Everything was perfect. There was no drama. Catherine married her soulmate. She was surrounded by people who loved her and supported her, but Lorraine wasn't done yet. Catherine learned most of what happened next in the days following the wedding, when friends and family shared their stories and videos. At 4:30 in the morning, Lorraine had stalked their mother to the hotel where the bridal party was getting ready. The front desk, bless them, sent her to the wrong room, the honeymoon suite where Daniel and the groomsmen had stayed the night before. Daniel's brother answered the door at 4:30 in the morning. He looked through the peephole first, saw Lorraine, and started recording on his phone before he opened the door. Lorraine was shocked to see a man answer. She immediately accused the men of bringing women back to the room, of having a wild bachelor party that kept them up all night. Daniel's brother told her, honestly, that he didn't know where the women were getting ready. When Lorraine started yelling and throwing a fit, he told her he was going to call their father to come get her. "I'm not a child," Lorraine screamed. "You don't need to call my dad on me." Other hotel guests came out of their rooms to see what the commotion was about. Daniel's brother asked them to call security. Lorraine fled before she could be removed from the hotel, but she showed up at the church too. Catherine's brothers saw her getting out of an unknown car in the parking lot. She was wearing a white, sparkly, strapless dress that showed off her chest tattoo and barely covered her bottom. It was paired with a short veil clipped into her hair and a white fuzzy coat in 18-degree weather. Catherine's brothers confronted her in the parking lot, with their father watching from inside the church. They took her veil, telling her that Catherine needed something borrowed. Whatever they said to her, it worked. Lorraine got back in the car and left, but then she showed up at the hotel for the cocktail hour. She loudly complained about how tacky it was to have a cash bar at a wedding. She berated the staff about the small bite-sized portions because she was so hungry. She demanded to know what was taking Catherine and Daniel so long to arrive. Multiple guests took photos and videos of her behavior. They said later that anyone who shows up to a wedding in white is looking to cause problems, so they documented everything. When Catherine's mother tried to talk to her, Lorraine complained about how she'd been treated. Their mother asked her how maybe her own actions had caused that treatment, and whether showing up in a white napkin of a dress was really helping her case. Then their father offered to get their mother a drink from the cash bar. While he was gone, Daniel's sister-in-law approached Lorraine. She told Lorraine that she had extra dresses in the car, that Catherine hadn't uninvited her from the reception, only from the wedding party. She could have a seat at the table with Catherine's brothers, but she needed to change into something appropriate first. This had been discussed the day before. Catherine had agreed that if Lorraine hadn't done anything to sabotage the wedding itself, she could attend the reception, but she had to be dressed appropriately. Lorraine stood quietly with the other guests for a little while, and then Haley walked by. Lorraine made a comment about how fake Haley's wig looked, even though Haley wasn't wearing a wig. Her hair was real. She hadn't lost it yet. Haley calmly told Lorraine that she could either change into an appropriate dress or leave. "But I'd prefer if you left," she added. Lorraine pushed her. She physically pushed Haley, a woman going through chemotherapy, a woman who was weak from treatment, and told her it was her fault that Catherine had removed Lorraine from the wedding. Luckily, Haley was pushed into a man standing nearby who caught her before she fell, and that's when Catherine's brothers stepped in. Lorraine was escorted out of the reception by Catherine's brothers. She was told that if she came back, the police would be called. She didn't come back. Catherine didn't find out about most of Lorraine's behavior until days later. On her actual wedding day, she was blissfully unaware. She danced with her husband. She celebrated with her friends and family. She laughed with Haley, who made it through the entire day despite her exhaustion. And the next day, Catherine went to the hospital because her hand was hurting. The slap she'd given Lorraine had fractured a bone in the back of her right hand, specifically the bone connected to her middle finger. When Daniel reminded her that broken bones heal stronger than they were before, Catherine laughed. She decided to dedicate that middle finger to her sister, the one that had broken her and made her stronger. Catherine hasn't spoken to Lorraine since the wedding. She maintains a relationship with her niece Emma through Emma's father, who she's rebuilt a friendship with. Emma comes to visit, and Catherine takes her to do fun things, and they have a relationship that's separate from Lorraine entirely. As for Lorraine's pregnancy, there's been no update, no baby announcement, no photos. Catherine suspects her father was right, that it was a lie designed to steal attention. But the truth is, Catherine doesn't think about Lorraine much anymore. She's too busy being happy, too busy building a life with Daniel, too busy being there for Haley as she goes through treatment. And I think that's the real ending to this story. Not the drama, not the confrontation, not even the satisfaction of Lorraine being escorted out of the reception in her ridiculous white dress. The real ending is Catherine choosing herself, choosing her happiness, choosing to protect her peace and her special day instead of accommodating someone who was actively trying to hurt her. For years, Catherine had been the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who kept the peace, who made excuses for Lorraine's behavior, who tried to maintain a relationship even when that relationship was toxic. But when Lorraine crossed the line, when she weaponized Catherine's grief, when she showed cruelty toward Haley, when she actively tried to sabotage the wedding, Catherine finally said enough. And I think there's something profoundly important about that moment, because women, especially eldest daughters, are taught from a very young age to be accommodating, to smooth things over, to prioritize other people's feelings above their own. We're taught that setting boundaries makes us difficult, that standing up for ourselves makes us selfish, that protecting our own happiness is somehow less important than keeping the peace. But that's not true, and Catherine's story proves it. Catherine set a boundary. She said, "You cannot treat me this way. You cannot treat my best friend this way. You cannot ruin the happiest day of my life just because you're jealous or angry or whatever it is that's driving this behavior." And when Lorraine refused to respect that boundary, Catherine enforced it. She removed Lorraine from the wedding. She slapped her when Lorraine brought up her dead fiancé as a weapon. She made it clear that their relationship was over. Was it messy? Yes. Was it painful? Absolutely. Did Catherine wish it had gone differently? I'm sure she did. But sometimes, the only way to protect yourself from a toxic person is to cut them out of your life entirely, even if that person is family, even if that person is your sister. And I think the most telling part of this entire story is how much better Catherine's life became once Lorraine was no longer in it. She had a beautiful wedding, she built a strong marriage with Daniel, she supported Haley through her cancer treatment, she maintained a relationship with her niece, she was happy. And Lorraine? Lorraine is left with the consequences of her own behavior. She lost her sister. She lost access to her daughter during important family events. She became the family outcast. Not because Catherine poisoned everyone against her, but because her own actions spoke for themselves. Catherine's brothers saw how Lorraine behaved. Their parents saw it. The extended family saw it. And they all made their own choices about what kind of relationship they wanted with Lorraine going forward. That's what happens when you spend years being cruel and manipulative and self-centered. Eventually, people stop making excuses for you. Eventually, they stop giving you chances. Eventually, they walk away, and you're left alone, wondering why no one wants to be around you anymore. So what can we learn from Catherine and Lorraine's story? I think the first lesson is this: jealousy is a poison that will destroy relationships if you let it fester. Lorraine was jealous of Catherine. Maybe she always had been. Maybe it started when they were children, and Catherine, as the oldest, got certain privileges or attention that Lorraine didn't. Maybe it intensified when Lorraine's marriage fell apart and she became a single mother, while Catherine seemed to have her life more together. Whatever the source, that jealousy turned into resentment, and resentment turned into cruelty, and cruelty destroyed their relationship. If Lorraine had been able to recognize her jealousy and work through it, maybe in therapy, maybe in honest conversations with Catherine, things might have been different, but instead, she let it consume her. She let it turn her into someone who would actively try to sabotage her sister's happiness. And that's tragic, because at the end of the day, Lorraine didn't just lose her sister, she lost herself. The second lesson is about enabling. For years, Catherine's family enabled Lorraine's bad behavior. They made excuses for her. They tried to keep the peace instead of holding Lorraine accountable. And that enabling allowed Lorraine's behavior to escalate. It wasn't until Catherine finally set a firm boundary and her father and mother supported that boundary that things changed. And even then, it took Catherine slapping Lorraine and cutting her out entirely for the message to be clear. If you have someone in your life whose behavior is toxic, The kindest thing you can do for them and for yourself is to stop enabling it. Set boundaries, enforce consequences, make it clear that their behavior is not acceptable. It won't feel kind in the moment. It will feel harsh and difficult and painful. But in the long run, it's the only way to create the possibility of change. The third lesson is about choosing yourself. For years, Catherine prioritized Lorraine's feelings above her own. She tried to maintain the relationship. She made accommodations. She gave chance after chance. But there comes a point when you have to choose yourself, when you have to say, my happiness matters, my peace matters, my special day matters, and I will not let you take that from me. That's not selfish, that's self-preservation. And Catherine's story shows us that when you finally make that choice, when you finally put yourself first, you often find that you're not alone. The people who truly love you will support you. They'll have your back. They'll celebrate your courage in setting that boundary. Catherine and Daniel are still happily married. They're building a life together in their home, the one they renovated, the one that Lorraine called lipstick on a pig. That home is filled with love and laughter. It's filled with the people who matter, and notably, it's filled with peace because Lorraine is no longer part of their lives. Haley completed her chemotherapy treatment. The cancer went into remission. She did eventually shave her head, and Daniel and his best man kept their promise. They shaved theirs too, in solidarity. Haley cried when she saw them, overwhelmed by their love and support. She's still Catherine's best friend. She's still the person Catherine calls when something wonderful happens or when something terrible happens. She's still the sister Catherine chose, even when her biological sister proved unworthy of that title. Emma, Catherine's niece, visits regularly. She spends weekends at Catherine and Daniel's house. She doesn't ask about why her mother isn't there. Maybe she will when she's older. Maybe Catherine will tell her the truth when she's ready to understand it. For now, Emma gets to have a relationship with her aunt that's healthy and loving and free from her mother's toxicity. And that's a gift. As for Lorraine, Catherine doesn't know. She doesn't check Lorraine's social media. She doesn't ask their parents about her. She's let that chapter of her life close completely. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to let go of people who refuse to treat you with respect, even if those people are family, even if those people are your sister. Because at the end of the day, family isn't just about blood, it's about love and respect and showing up for each other. And if someone can't do those things, if they consistently choose to hurt you instead of support you, then they don't deserve the title of family. They're just someone you used to know. And that's okay. That's more than okay. That's freedom. Thank you for sitting with me through Catherine's story. I know it was a long one. I know it was complicated and painful and probably brought up feelings about your own family dynamics, your own difficult relationships, your own struggles with setting boundaries. If you see yourself in Catherine's story, if you have someone in your life who treats you the way Lorraine treated Catherine, I hope this story gives you permission to choose yourself, to set boundaries, to protect your peace. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be celebrated. You deserve to have people in your life who lift you up instead of tearing you down. And if that means cutting someone out, even someone you love, even someone who's family, then so be it. Your happiness is worth fighting for. Take care of yourselves. Protect your joy. And remember, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Until next time.